Hello friends, welcome back. Today we're going to pass props to a stateless functional component. The previous challenges covered a lot about creating and composing JSX elements, functional components, and ES6 style class components in React. With this foundation, it's time to look at another feature very common in React, props. In React, you can pass props or properties to child components. Say you have an app component which renders a child component called welcome, which is a stateless functional component. You can pass welcome, a user property, by writing app welcome, and then we set the user equal to mark. So we have, it looks like we're passing in a kind of like a key value pair type thing. You can use custom HTML attributes created by you and supported by React to be passed to the component. In this case, the created property user is passed to the component welcome. So the user is passed to the component welcome. Since welcome is a stateless function component, it has access to the values like this. So if it were to go the constant of welcome and the props, we could say passing in h1 hello props.user. h1. It is standard to call this value props, and when dealing with stateless functional components, you basically consider it as an argument to a function which returns JSX. You can access the value of the argument in the function body with the class components. You will see this is a little different. There are calendar and current date components in the code editor. So here we've got current date, which is one component, and then we have calendar, which is another one. This is a class component, and then this one is a regular component. There are calendar and current date components in the code editor. When rendering current date from the calendar component, pass in a property of date assigned to the current date from JavaScript's date object. Then access this prop in the current date component, showing its value within the p tags. Note that for prop values to be evaluated as JavaScript, they must be enclosed in curly brackets. For instance, the date needs to be set within curly brackets. All right, so this is pretty challenging. Okay, so components in the code editor. When rendering current date from calendar component, pass the property of date assigned to the current date from JavaScript's date object. Okay, so how are we going to do this? Okay, so in here we want the current date. Here, okay, so we're actually already doing it. The current date is blank. The current date is blank. And so if we were to change something here, we're seeing it reflecting in here. So yeah, what we want to do, I guess it's already happening, right? The current date. The current date is here. Oh, but they don't want us to pass it in here. They want us to pass it in here with the props. Change code below this line. Oh, we're going to change this code and the code below. Okay, so what we can do is, here is where we're calling the current date, right? In this one, the current date's here. They're calling the current date here. Now, what we want to do is make it so that we can open and close that situation. So current date, and now we're putting an end to this prop name. And then within the current date, we want, oh no, we don't have to do that. We can actually keep it as a single space one. So we're going to have current date, and we're going to pass in the date to be equal to date.new. Current date, date.new. Okay. And so I'm going to just open up the console real quick, because I want to say, how do you get the JavaScript? I want to make sure that I'm passing in the right date. I think, well, they're saying that you can do it like this. Okay, so yeah, we can just pass in date. So the date is equal to date. I mean, I guess we could do date not do. Date.new. That might be a new date. New date. Okay, new date. Yeah, that would be, I sometimes write in Ruby. But anyways, okay, so we want to pass in a new date. We'll see if this works. And then, okay, cool. So we're going to climb back up here. The current date is, and now what we need to do is we're passing it into here. We're using this, but what we need to do is actually have it work in here. So we want to go inside of here. The current date is, and I'm adding a space here so that it looks better. And we're going to props dot, and then I want to say the same thing that I said down here. So date. Okay, so something broke here, and so I'm going to say, instead of saying a new date, I'm just going to go date. Okay, so yeah, there we go. It seems to be working. So yeah, let's just take one more look at this before we go away, because when I ran through this the first time, I think that I picked up very little of it because I just figured out the answer and then closed it, and that caused me, it's just hard when you're learning this stuff for the first time. I think it's quite challenging stuff. So what I'm doing is just cleaning this up. So once again, we've got a calendar thing here, and we're rendering calendar. When the calendar gets rendered, it comes down here, and basically we get everything ready. We're in the DOM. We set a div. We create that. Inside of the div, there's this W3 element. What date is it? And so that date, it's rendered out here. Then underneath the H3 element, we render the current date prop, which we have stored in the memory already. So it goes back up. It says our current date, and what we want to do is return a div in here. So this is a new div, and we're adding a P element, which is the current date is, and then within the date element, what we're doing is we're asking the props, which is what's being passed. That's why you have the super props thing here. The props are being passed into here and saved. So props.date is being saved. Props.date is being saved here. And then the date is equal to and then here we're setting what the date is. So this is the time of day, wherever it is. And so the current date, when we say current date, we're setting the prop of date to, this date object, this Sunday, April 19th, 2020 thing. And so that's what the date is equal to. And then so when we come into here, it says, okay, well, let's take the props, which are whatever we've assigned here, and we're saying dot date. So dot date. So, I mean, you could say another one, you could be like, we could go P, close P, and then it could be like the name is, and then we could say props.u.name, right? Bear with me here. And then here we could say name is equal to useful programmer. Okay, so now we're passing. Now our props are. Now we have two props. We've got the date and the name, and so and then we can read off the date here, or the date is set to here, and the props.name is set to here. I wonder if we could just go props. No. I wonder if we could go like props dot to string. Oh, that's just renders props to string. Yeah, so I don't know how to do that. I'm just kind of playing around trying to show you guys how I would think about this. But this idea, I hope it helps you, that this is the current date. We run up to here, and then we say render the current date with the following props, which is the date and then a name. And then we come up here, and as it goes through here, it says the current date is, and then it goes, okay, what was the date? It goes to the date. Okay, and then it renders out this, and then it say, okay, what's the props.name? Comes down here, props.name, injects that into there, and then wraps it up. And then once that has rendered, then we close the div, and then we close the cycle of having React render this to the DOM. So I hope that was helpful. All the name stuff is not important for passing the tests, but I don't think it causes it to break. The date prop should be generated by calling date. Current date component should render the value of the date prop in the p tag. Okay, so adding a new p tag in here has caused the tests to break. I think if I did it like this, it would probably still render. Okay, well, it doesn't like the name thing, but I wanted to just show you that so you could see how it works. So let's just render it back. We've got a good looking solution. We run the tests and they seem to pass. Okay, awesome. Hope you guys enjoyed this one, and we'll see you in the next lesson.